All right, we are group 2, and we are going to be presenting on nutrition and the young child. Next slide. Here's a fun quote. The way to get started is to quit talking. Oh, I didn't finish it. That's all right. But we'll just go ahead and get into the slides. The first one is how to foster healthy eating habits. Next slide. One of the most important things is to not criticize your child when they might be showing unhealthy eating habits. Criticism can often lead to things like dieting and overeating, and there's always a better way to do it. So in the next few slides, I'm going to talk about better ways to help your child to develop those healthy eating habits. Next slide. The first one is to be a good role model. Children's healthy habits always start with the parents. And when they can see that you are eating healthy and you're trying, then they're a lot more likely to eat what you eat and do what you do. So role model healthy eating, that is super important. Next slide. Another thing that families can do is set a family dinner time. There's a few different reasons why this is important. It's really good for the child's social, emotional, and as well as developmental purposes. It also is important to help teach your children portions. For example, teaching them that half the plate should be veggies and fruits, and helping them to understand just portions in general. And all of those things can be done during family dinner time. Next slide. Another really important thing to do for your child is to involve them in meal planning and meal prep. So the first thing you can do is take them to the grocery store and give them options. You can ask them, do you want to buy the red apples or the green apples? And this will help them to get excited about the foods that they're going to choose and eat. If you help them to choose a food, then it's said that the sense of pride they get from helping prepare the vegetables may increase their willingness to eat those vegetables. It's also important to give them small tasks. So while meal prepping, give them tasks such as mixing ingredients, washing fruit, or peeling potatoes. All of these things can help your child to develop those healthy eating habits and be able to live a healthy lifestyle in the future as well.
Next slide. My part is the importance of parental involvement. Now, good health teaches them good habits. Poor care in childhood will result in adult illnesses and eventually early deaths. Major influences in healthcare is at the age of 2 to 5 year olds. Once your children reach middle school age, their peers and their teachers have a greater influential on their choices in what they're going to eat. Next slide. The role parents play in a physical activity has increased in the later years as we bring our children up. It can be negative and it can also be a positive. The positive is children knows that the parents care, but the negative part is they can feel too much pressure from and they need to perform them. Next slide. Research on parental influence on obesity has been done over the years, and it has increased the disease risks and mobilities in young adulthood, and parents is instrumental in influencing children's diets. Studies has done research in showing the positive results when parental involvements are present. Next slide. And the role parents play is very important. That they determine what food the children's going to eat, the preferences. Is it going to be very sugary? Is it going to be more salty? Is it going to be fruity, meat, and all that different styles of food that you can have. And they set the example. So if parents eat healthy, the children will eat healthy as well, because it's just they follow the example. parents purchase the foods, and so make sure that there's not too much junk food in our home, because this will determine your children's feeding styles. Junk food's easier to make than proper food from scratch. Thank you.
Okay, so I have the importance of educator involvement. And I really like this quote. It says, good nutrition is the bedrock of child survival and development. Not only is it important to just survive, but it's also important for their brains to develop. Between the ages of 0 and 6, our brains are constantly changing and growing, and good nutrition is extremely important for that. Next slide. So when mothers are pregnant, it's the beginning of nutrition for a fetus, which actually affects our childhood and adulthood. So some of the consequences of low birth weight listed in the book are developmental delays, cognitive and visual hearing impairments, that they can be increased, and then often the children will cry or have behavioral troubles, and so malnutrition while we're pregnant can increase the risk of a low birth weight. Next slide. On the CDC's website, sorry, I'm on my phone here, and it says breastfeeding provides unmatched health benefits for babies and mothers. It is the clinical gold standard for infant feeding and nutrition. With breast milk uniquely tailored to meet the health needs of a growing baby. We must do more to create supportive and safe environments for mothers who choose to breastfeed. Oftentimes there's even cultures that breastfeeding is discouraged until a lady's or mother's milk comes in, and that's actually really false. That those first couple of days, the colostrum is extremely important for breastfeeding baby, because it has quite a bit of nutrients, even though it's not filled with all of the fat. So educating our mothers when they're pregnant and then when they have an infant on the importance of this is important. Next slide. All right. There's quite a few complications of malnutrition, which is really common in other countries besides or outside of the United States, and even in the United States. The statistics show that 1 in 5 children is affected by malnutrition. And then there's different complications of malnutrition, one being stunting, you're too short for your age, or wasting, meaning you're too thin, and it can affect your immune system. It also can cause a child to be overweight. And then there's another complication called hidden hunger, which is a deficit of nutritional vitamins and micronutrients. Next slide. Last, one of the most important reasons why it's important for educators and parents to educate their children about nutrition is the complications of childhood obesity. There's consequences are high blood pressure, high cholesterol, heart disease, headaches, blood problems, diabetes type 2, sleep apnea, bullying, and depression. Next slide.
Okay, I think it's my turn. Well, as has been pointed out, one of the things that we need to consider is about nutrition. And when we are discussing about nutrition, of course, we cannot escape some public health issues that are related to nutrition, especially in young children. Perhaps we might think that there's now a relationship between nutrition and health, but actually they have a bonded relationship, especially if we consider this question. What is a balanced diet and the amount of food necessary that will allow the right development of an individual? So when we consider this, or if we take into consideration this, how can we understand, or what are the implications that nutrition has to do with a child or even an adult? We can consider what the World Health Organization has mentioned. They state that the organizations or institutions in charge of food safety should make sure that the new food products don't imply a risk in public health. So I believe that this is quite important because what we eat is what make us feel good or make us feel bad. And in that case, and in this scenario where we're analyzing what could be the public health issues, so we may understand better why an organization like this give us this hint. There are many causes, or there are many factors that can affect public health. Among those factors, we can find that there are some difficulties for accessing to basic food, especially when people are living in extreme poverty, is where we find the situation. Or in some countries or some areas of specific countries where people cannot access to food as they should. Another thing that can be a difficulty here are economic crises, lack of basic services such as water and electricity, but also the difficulties of getting food. In addition to this, we can find environmental pollution. Like this could be one of the greatest threats in nutrition because, as I already mentioned, how they're growing organic food, for example. So all these things or all these elements should be considered in this part, and especially in food safety. Also, the uncontrolled population growth, we can notice that every year population is growing dramatically, and maybe this can be one of the major causes of public health issues. Another part of this is the globalization, but three of the most significant threats, or let's say issues in this area, are malnutrition, overweight, and obesity, and lack of vitamin A. According to the World Health Organization, when we're talking about malnutrition, we can say that malnutrition can be shown or can appear in different ways. This is undernutrition, which involves wasting, stunting, and underweight, and also inadequate vitamins or minerals, overweight, obesity, and resulting diet-related non-communicable diseases. Moreover, we can also find, like discussing before, overweight and obesity. These two, this issue involves when someone is using or consuming too much energy or um, too much food or things that maybe can cause a problem, and this will basically produce overweight or obesity. Um, Especially when consuming high in sugars or fats. And Last but not least, we have the lack of vitamin A. According to Weininger, vitamin A deficiency is the leading cause of preventable blindness in children and is a major problem in the developing world, especially in Africa and Southeast Asia. In the poorest countries, hundreds of thousands of children become blind each year due to a deficiency of the vitamin. So this means that all these issues can be a problem, not only in children, but also in adults. But we can also see what could be the solutions for these problems or issues in nutrition.
Okay, hello. So I'm going to be talking about some of the solutions, and the first one is education. With the increased prices in buying healthy food, teaching gardening to families is one of the best things we can do. Even if you don't have a lot of space, there is pots you can plant vegetables in. And when we grow our own food, as was mentioned before, it can help with the vitamin A deficiency because a lot of these things are nutritious and rich in vitamin A. And as we teach people how to preserve and cook these nutritious foods, they can save a lot of money rather than buying the prepackaged instant foods. They're getting more nutrients and they're learning how to prepare food and saving money. And also people need to realize what types of vitamins and minerals are in the foods that they're preparing so they can make sure themselves and their children are getting what they need to be healthy and strong. Next, please. As we already mentioned, the mother's nutrition affects the baby, and women across the world need encouragement in breastfeeding and to be educated to understand things like the benefits of colostrum and how breast milk changes as the infant ages and all the benefits that happen when they're breastfeeding. And as we make sure mothers or breastfeeding mothers are having adequate nutrition, that can benefit the infant for the rest of their life. Supports that we can include for moms in struggling neighborhoods could be food and snack programs available to pregnant moms and moms that are nursing to make sure they're getting that adequate nutrition. Next, please. So one of the issues that we're experiencing is marketing that's geared to children. And so one of the solutions we need to talk about is limiting that exposure, improving regulations so there's not marketing happening in daycare centers and schools, and educating children so they understand that, you know, choosing the chips and the French fries instead of something fresh does have implications for their health. And as we encourage after school programs and lunch programs in the schools, and maybe instead of hot dogs, they have some fresh vegetables and things like that, we can all partner and team up and make sure these children are getting the nutrients that they need. Limiting a child's screen time may be another option because a lot of these ads are targeted to children are coming across of their screen time. So just being aware of what your child is being exposed to and helping them learn the facts about nutrition. Next, please. So there's some innovative programs for vulnerable communities when it comes to the rise in food prices. The first one I want to talk about is called Garden on the Go, and that is a mobile produce program, and that delivers fresh, affordable fruits and vegetables to neighborhoods that have limited access to healthy foods. Another idea is a community garden where people work together to take care of these gardens and learn about gardening, and they can grow healthy, nutritious vegetables right in their own neighborhoods. And these are often located on municipal properties, and there are government subsidies available to help some of these struggling communities and even not struggling communities. So we can all be eating healthy food and educating ourselves as the cost of food continues to increase. So that is our presentation for Group 2. Thank you for joining us today.